All right, let's dive into one of the most explosive and game-changing decades in music history, the very first 10 years of recorded hip-hop. We're going to go on a journey from a block party in New York City all the way to a global cultural force and see how it all unfolded.
So let's just be real for a second. Getting into those super early rap songs, it can be kind of tough. And, someone on Reddit really nailed it when they said the music can feel, well, dated and just hard to connect with. But that's exactly why we're digging in. Because what was happening back then was so revolutionary, and it laid the groundwork for everything that came after.
So, the big question is, where does this whole story actually start? To really get the music, you have to first understand the place and the time that it was born into. See, hip-hop didn't start in some fancy recording studio. It was born on the streets, in the parks, and in the community rooms of the Bronx back in the 1970s. You gotta picture it. This was a part of New York City that was facing some really tough times. Poverty, crime, and a whole lot of neglect. And right out of that struggle, this powerful new culture just emerged.
So what was the secret sauce? What was the actual sound of this new culture? Well, it all came down to a simple but honestly genius idea: finding the break. DJs figured out that the best part of any funk or soul record, the part that made everyone go absolutely nuts on the dance floor, was that instrumental, drum-heavy section. That was the magic.
And you can pretty much trace the whole thing back to one guy, a Jamaican immigrant named Clive Campbell, who the world would come to know as DJ Kool Herc. He came up with this wild idea. He'd get two turntables, find the break on two copies of the same record, and just play them back to back, looping them into this non-stop hypnotic rhythm. His party at 1520 Sedgwick Avenue in 1973, yeah, that's widely considered the moment hip-hop was born.
For years, this was purely a live thing. You had to be there to experience it. But in 1979, the game completely changed. Someone finally cracked the code on how to bottle that energy and press it onto vinyl.
Okay, so this is where things get a little interesting. There's always this debate, right? What was the first rap record? Well, technically, a track called King Tim 3 by the Fatback Band got out there first. But it was Rapper's Delight that really blew the doors off and became the genre's first certified world-stopping smash hit. Come on, you've heard it a million times, right? That opening? It was like a transmission from another planet for most people. It took the sound, the slang, the pure fun of a Bronx party and beamed it into radios all across the world. It was infectious, and it was totally... And when I say the world was listening, I mean it. Rapper's Delight sold around 5 million copies. Think about that. All of a sudden, a kid in Ohio or a teenager in France could hear the exact sound that had been bubbling up in New York for years. Just like that, a local scene went global. But here's the thing. Rapper's Delight wasn't the only game in town. Not by a long shot. The floodgates were open, and this whole universe of artists started to get on record. You had guys like Spoonie G, who had this incredibly smooth, almost conversational flow. You had groups like Funky 4+1, who not only got a record deal, but had the first female MC on a track. And you had Curtis Blow, who smashed a huge barrier by becoming the first rapper to sign with a major label. The scene was exploding.
Okay, so the party's been going for a few years, but right around 1982, something starts to shift. The vibe changes. The fun party rhymes started morphing into something way deeper. This was a real turning point.
And bam, this one line just hits like a ton of bricks. It was a complete left turn from all the party raps. This was raw, it was desperate, and it painted this incredibly vivid and grim picture of what life was actually like in the city at the time. This song was an absolute game changer. It proved that rap could be more than just good time music. It could be news. It could be a protest. It could be the voice for people who felt like they didn't have one. It basically created the entire blueprint for what we call conscious rap.
Then just a year later, another earthquake hits. While the message was changing what rappers talked about, a group called Run-D.M.C was about to completely change how rap sounded. This line wasn't just a boast, it was a warning that a new era had arrived.
And this is what everyone started calling the new school. It was a total sonic shift. They stripped everything away. Gone were those smooth, groovy disco loops. In their place, just hard, raw, in-your-face beats from a drum machine. It was minimal, but it was powerful. So let's break that down, because it's a huge deal. The old school was all about that party vibe, tied to disco and funk, where the DJ was the king. But the new school, it flipped the script. The spotlight shot directly onto the MCs, with their tough, boastful rhymes, writing these stripped-down, aggressive beats. It was a whole new attitude.
And what's crazy is how fast this all happened. It was like a 1-2-3 punch. In '82, Africa Bambaataa Planet Rock brought in this futuristic electro sound. In that same year, The Message proved rap could be deadly serious. And then in '83, Run-D.M.C came along and slammed it all together, defining the new era. It was a whirlwind. So all of that groundbreaking work in the early '80s, it set the stage for what many people to this day call the golden age of hip-hop. This was a period of creative and lyrical fire unlike anything before. This era was just an explosion of pure creativity. It felt like there were no rules. Artists were getting more and more complex with their rhymes, they were tackling huge social issues, and the sounds were getting richer and more diverse, with producers chopping up all kinds of samples. It was a true artistic peak.
And the list of icons from this period, it's just staggering. You had the political prophets like Public Enemy and KRS-One. You had the master wordsmiths like Rakim and Big Daddy Kane, who were turning rapping into a high art form. Out on the West Coast, you had NWA giving you that unfiltered street reporting. And so importantly, you had these powerful women like Queen Latifah and MC Lyte commanding the mic and proving they were absolutely essential to the culture.
And then, at the very end of the decade, Public Enemy drops this lyrical bomb in their anthem, Fight the Power. For a lot of people, hearing this line was a genuine shock to the system. It was bold, it was defiant, and it was meant to be. Now, this line caused a huge stir, but Chuck D himself explained what was really behind it. The point wasn't some personal jab at Elvis. It was a much bigger critique of a culture that was happy to call Elvis the king while totally ignoring the black pioneers like Chuck Berry and Little Richard, who literally invented the music he played. It was a lyric designed to make you stop and think. So when you step back and look at the whole decade, the transformation is just wow. It goes from the pure party fun of rappers' delight to the gritty reality of The Message. Then it gets this raw, aggressive sound with sucker MCs and finally blossoms into the complex political art of Fight the Power, all in just 10 years. Incredible. It's an amazing story, right? From a local party in the Bronx to a force that shaped global culture. This first decade literally set the template for everything to come. The music started as the voice of a very specific community with a clear message for its time. And that kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on. What is hip-hop's message today?